Hello everyone, Moobies here, and welcome to the Auriaya Ulduar boss guide, the Crazy Cat Lady. This is the third and final boss in the antechamber before we face off against the Keepers. Let's get into it. Auriaya has 4 abilities and spawns 2 different adds. The first ability is Sonic Screech. This deals 200,000 physical damage split equally between all enemies in front of her. Next is Sentinel Blast. This inflicts 6,000 shadow damage and increases shadow damage taken by 100% for 5 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. This can be interrupted. Terrifying Screech. This is a raid-wide fear for 5 seconds and is a magic effect. And finally, Guardian Swarm. This marks a player and summons a pack of 10 swarming guardians that have low HP and can be killed. The adds she has are Sanctum Sentries. At the start of the fight, she'll have 4 of these padding around with her around the circular portion of the room. They do Savage Pounce, which inflicts 6,000 physical damage and 4,000 physical damage every 1 second for 5 seconds, and they buff each other with Strength of the Pack. This increases the damage of all Sanctum Sentries by 30% for each other sentry nearby. Every 60 seconds into the fight, Auriaya will spawn a Feral Defender. It has 4 abilities. Feral Essence, which increases damage by 50% per stack. It starts with 9 and it reduces by 1 each time it dies. Feral Rush. This charges a random player, dealing shadow damage and interrupting them for 6 seconds. Feral Pounce. This stuns and damages their target for shadow damage over 5 seconds. And finally, Seeping Feral Essence. This is a void zone that gets placed on the ground that does 6,000 shadow damage per second for anyone standing in it. This spawns when the Feral Defender dies. Now that we've gone over the main abilities, let's talk about strategy. For this fight, you're going to want a balanced raid composition, 2 tanks, 4 to 5 healers, and a mix of ranged and melee DPS. This boss is all about the pull. If you can get the pull clean, the boss itself falls fairly easily. So let's talk about the pull. You want to have your entire raid out of line of sight from Auriaya and the Sanctum Sentries. To pull her, we had a hunter leave an explosive trap and cast misdirection as she got close. The hunter stayed out of line of sight during this, and the explosive trap allowed all damage and all the boss threat and all of her sentries to go directly to the tank. Once they get to you, AoE the sentries down as quickly as possible and then get on the boss. We found that the corners of the staircases heading down towards the Keepers are out of line of sight. However, if you move to the left or right of them into the circle, you will be in line of sight and the sentries can jump over the wall to get to you. Stay behind the corner until the boss and the sentries are stacked up. Now the fight. The fight itself is fairly straightforward. If you've made it through the pull and everyone is still alive, have everyone that can stand in front of the boss always standing in front of the boss. All shaman in your raid should be separated to maximize Tremor Totem usage. Since Tremor Totem is group-based, you may not be able to get every group. That's okay. Tremor Totem is best used on your tanks and your dispellers. Since the fear is dispellable, you can break people out quickly. Once the fear ends, get back into position in front of the boss quickly, as she will likely cast Sonic Screech very soon after the fear ends. We found that melee can generally stand behind the boss depending on how many melee you have. If you're melee heavy, some should stand in front. If you're range heavy, melee don't have to take the Sonic Screech. Set up an interrupt rotation for Sentinel Blast and ensure you have a tremor in the group with your interrupters and tanks. If one gets off, that's okay, but don't let her chain cast this, as it does stack and will kill your tank. After about 60 seconds, the boss will spawn a Feral Defender, which does not have an aggro table and will jump around the raid dealing damage. All DPS should swap to the Defender immediately and DPS it down. Some groups will try weird taunting tricks to get it out of the raid before it dies and spawns a void zone. We didn't do this. We killed it where it was and repositioned the boss away from the void zone quickly. That's our recommended strategy for dealing with the void zones. If you can get the pull down and solidify your positioning, this fight is a walk in the park. Now we're on to the keepers. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.